Great Demon King. Chapter 48. The Allure of Gold Coins. After departing from Fabian, Shuo's path took him straight to the outskirts of the dark forest. He took the paths that their group had all taken before, retracing familiar routes yet feeling the weight of solitude on his journey. During his trek, Shuo continued to practice magic diligently. Having undergone the reforging of the solid realm, it was as if Shuo had been reborn. Now that his magical training had borne fruit, the magical Yuan could travel to all parts of his body according to his will, granting him unprecedented control and flexibility. There were 9 levels in the world of demonic magic, and Shuo had now reached the Open Passages realm. The training for the Open Passages and Solid realms differed slightly. This realm primarily focused on the expansion of the body's meridians, greatly increasing the width and durability of the meridians. In every instance of training, the process of opening passages filled his body with splitting agony, as if there were insects biting and gnawing within the meridians. The pain was intense and relentless, a testament to the rigorous demands of his magical advancement. The first 3 levels of demonic magic, solid, open passages, and molded spirit, were the most foundational realms. Training became increasingly difficult as one progressed. But with the experience of training in the solid realm, Shuo already understood that agony and inhumane torture accompanied his magical training. The inhumane pain of the Open Passages realm was also within his expectations. He used magical Yuan to repeatedly expand his meridians without letting up for a second, basing it purely on indomitable will and sheer determination to overcome the immense physical strain. After 12 grueling days of training and traveling, Shuo still hadn't run into Fanny and the others along the way. He finally made it out of the dark forest alone, and arrived at the town of Droll again, as dusk began to follow. The passage through the forest had tested him in ways he had never imagined, pushing his magical abilities to their limits, and forging a resilience that now defined him. Compared to a month ago, Shuo had weathered through the trials of the dark forest, and since then, his strength, mindset, and appearance had all undergone drastic changes. Shuo was now over 170 cm tall, and although his body wasn't overly muscular, he was no longer thin and scrawny. His physique had become more defined, muscles subtly rippling beneath his skin, a clear sign of his enhanced physical conditioning. After being baptized by fresh blood in combat, Shuo had greatly improved both his pluck and knowledge. His entire aura was also undergoing mysterious changes. He was slowly transforming under circumstances that even Shuo himself wasn't fully aware of, his presence becoming more formidable and commanding with each passing day. At dusk, the town of Droll was enclosed in a happy, carefree atmosphere. Many adventurers had returned from the dark forest. Some wore expressions of sorrow, having lost companions, while others had satisfied smiles on their faces due to obtaining rich rewards. They planned on a thorough night of revelry within the town of Droll, their laughter and chatter filling the air with a lively energy that contrasted sharply with the dark, foreboding environment of the dark forest. When it was dusk, Shuo first came to the place where Jean and the others had borrowed and stabled their battle steeds. He observed the place from a distance and noticed that the battle steeds they had spent money to borrow were still present. He immediately understood that Fanny and everyone else probably hadn't returned to Droll yet. Although they had spent money on the battle steeds, the necromancy teachers and students only had the rights to use them. When they returned to Zajoski, they would have to return the battle steeds to the Zajoski guards in precisely the same condition that they had received them. Since the battle steeds were still here, that meant Fanny and them had definitely yet to leave. Shuo naturally knew that traveling with such haste by himself, he was sure to return much more quickly than Fanny's slowly plodding group. Perhaps Fanny and the others had been delayed by magical creatures along the way, so it was within his expectations that Fanny and the others hadn't returned yet. He went to the small hotel that everyone had stayed in previously, walked to the main counter, and said with a smile, "I need a room." The owner was eating fruit with his eyes almost shut. He raised his head to flick a glance at Shuo and said lazily, "Oh, it's you. Give me 10 bronze coins. That warehouse is always empty. You can go there now." The last time Shuo had come with the others, Jean had especially rented out a warehouse for Shuo, and Shuo had been scorned by the owner because of this scorn. Therefore, when the owner saw that it was Shuo, he naturally assumed that with Shuo's status, he could only rent the warehouse. He didn't become angry, but rather smiled and took out the money bag at his waist. He clinked and poured out 1 gold coin from it, dumping it onto the round wooden table. He looked sideways at the owner and said, I don't want to stay in the warehouse. The owner had been lazing about when he suddenly sat up, swiping the gold coin off the round table. A professional smile swiftly pasted itself to his face, and he raised his voice. Of course, of course. How would a warehouse be worthy of 1 gold coin? Cute little fellow. Tell me whatever kind of room you want to stay in today. A gold coin will be more than enough. His treatment was drastically different from last times with the presence of gold coins. Shuo smiled faintly and nodded. I want the room the female teacher was in last time. Arrange it for me. No problem. Not a problem at all. This is the key. 1 gold coin is enough for up to 5 nights there. Do you have any other desires, young man? The owner asked further with a toadying expression. The owner's face was wreathed in smiles as he merrily took out a key from a drawer behind him and handed it to Shuo. Nothing else. Just go about your own business. Shuo walked directly towards the room that Fanny had occupied before after receiving the key, thinking that money had the same miraculous power no matter what world one was in. It would seem that in order to gain one's footing in this world, gold coins were a requisite item. Shuo unloaded his belongings after arriving at the room Fanny had stayed in before, leisurely taking a hot bath in the tub. Recalling the pleasant affair that had taken place here last time, Shuo felt a burst of flames erupt from him, and his lower body bore certain uncontrollable, strong signs of transformation. Cursing in a low tone, Shuo stood up naked and grabbed a towel from the side to dry his body off. Just as he was about to leave the bathroom, he caught a glimpse of his athletic, sculptured body in a wide mirror that had been placed off to the side. Shuo's body in the mirror displayed bulging muscles all over his torso and limbs, and a fit figure that exuded strength. The sun had turned his skin a copper color during this time, and he looked exceedingly healthy and full of masculine energy, a marked difference from his previous waif-like thin self-like. He squeezed his 2 chest muscles with satisfaction. They were neither too big nor too small, and he struck some poses in front of the mirror. Shuo pointed at his reflection in the mirror with a touch of narcissism, laughing as he complimented himself. Little fellow, looking good, eh? Shuo then proceeded to a clothing vendor after he left the hotel, spending 1 gold coin to purchase a soft, high-quality undergarment, wearing it inside the errand boy uniform that the academy had handed out. He then came to a weapons vendor and spent 10 gold coins to purchase a higher quality dagger, 4 gold coins for 15 sharp steel needles, and hid them in his pant legs. Additionally, he spent another 6 gold coins to purchase a miniature crossbow to hide in his sleeve, fully arming himself for any unexpected encounters. Afterwards, Shuo went to a pharmacist and took out 40 gold coins to buy a few solutions and powders. Apart from a few simple medicinal supplies, tranquilizing and psychedelic aphrodisiacs were also part of the mix, as well as a bottle of poison. These items were prohibited within the empire's city of Zajoski. Even if Shuo had the money, he didn't have the means to procure them, but in the town of Droll, open trade was allowed because adventurers needed them. Since Shuo had come here with money in hand, and now that he understood the importance of strength, he naturally bought some in case they would be needed later. After he had bought all these items, Shuo finally sighed and thought that it was good to have money. He felt that even his spine was more upright than normal after walking out of the pharmacist. Everything became so much easier when there were gold coins in his money bag. On the way back to the hotel, Shuo's stomach roiled as he looked at the hotels decked out in colorful lights. He followed his body's needs and ducked into one of the hotels, seeking a moment of respite. The din was loud and deafening within the hotel, and neon lights flashed randomly on the roof. Adventurers and merchants had formed small groups and congregated around tables and chairs within the hall, loudly chattering about their adventures. The lively atmosphere was a stark contrast to the silent, ominous environment of the dark forest. These people's faces were flushed red, and they held wine glasses in their hands, drunkenly calling out and conversing without any reservations. Delicacies were placed everywhere on the tables, and a few young male and female waiters continuously threaded through the throng, serving them more fragrant wine and dishes. The smell of roasted meat and spiced wine filled the air, creating an inviting yet chaotic ambience. Shuo made a beeline for the only empty table in the corner of the hall, and sat down. A shy young waiter quickly walked in front of Shuo afterwards and asked politely, "Excuse me, what would you like? Good wine, good meats, give me some of both of them." Shuo fished out 1 gold coin and flicked it into the waiter's serving platter with his thumb, commanding loudly as he opened his mouth. When the server saw the gold coin land, his eyes immediately brightened, and he immediately bowed even more respectfully. He put away the coin without a change in expression and smiled with a gentle voice. "Aye, sir, Please wait just a moment. It will be up right away. One should enjoy themselves when they had wealth to spend. Shuo lazily lounged against the chair and sized up the various adventurers and merchants in the hall with slitted eyes. Some of these had possibly just returned from the dark forest, or were about to enter it. Some of them had just escaped from danger, whereas others were planning on heading into unknown perils. They were all releasing their energy in great waves, enjoying the revelry of the town of Droll to their heart's content. After a while, the shy server placed a bottle of light purple wine, 3 large platters of meat, and 2 bowls of fruit on Shuo's table. This is purple Leyland, the most renowned wine in the town of Droll. Adventurers all love drinking this. I hope you will be satisfied with it. The waiter pointed at the bottle of light purple wine and introduced it after placing everything on the table. He then bowed and retreated. Shuo couldn't wait and grabbed a piece of meat, tearing away at it with gusto. Although it didn't taste as good as the ones he'd prepared, it was still quite good. He twisted the top off the wine bottle and gulped down a large mouthful of purple Leyland. The luscious sweetness also embodied a certain fire to it, and a mellow aftertaste was left in the mouth after it had traveled down to his stomach, bringing another kind of enjoyment to Shuo. Good wine indeed, Shuo complimented. When he raised his head to look around, he suddenly saw 2 familiar figures walk in the door, Claude and Irene. Claude and Irene scanned the area, searching for an empty seat. Both started when their gazes landed on Shuo, and to Shuo's surprise, they actually started walking towards him in pure coincidence. As Claude approached, his expression shifted from casual to a mix of surprise and cautious recognition. Irene, following closely behind, maintained a composed demeanor, but her eyes betrayed a hint of curiosity. They both took their seats across from Shuo, the atmosphere between them filled with unspoken questions and a history of shared experiences. Shuo, Claude began, his voice carrying a tone of both relief and wariness. We didn't expect to find you here so soon. Irene nodded in agreement, adding, We've been worried about your safety since we lost contact. What took you so long? Shuo leaned back in his chair, a confident smile playing on his lips. Had my reasons? The dark forest isn't as forgiving as I thought it would be. I had to make sure I was prepared for whatever comes next. Claude exchanged a glance with Irene before returning his focus to Shuo. We heard about the Cemetery of Death. Did you manage to find it? Shuo nodded, his eyes reflecting the memories of his arduous journey. Yes, and it wasn't easy, but I found some valuable items and learned more about my magical abilities. The town of Droll has been a good place to rest and regroup. Irene leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. You've changed, Shuo. Your training seems to have paid off. We need to discuss our next move. The situation with the necromancy students is getting more complicated, and we might need your newfound skills. Shuo's smile widened, the allure of gold coins and the promise of power fueling his ambition. I'm ready for whatever comes our way. Let's make sure we're prepared to handle the threats and secure our position. As the conversation continued, Shuo felt a surge of confidence. The gold coins he had accumulated provided not just material wealth, but also the means to further enhance his magical prowess and secure his place within the academy. The allure of gold coins was undeniable, offering him the freedom and resources he needed to pursue his goals without hindrance. The night in the town of Droll stretched on, filled with strategic discussions, plans for future endeavors, and the strengthening of bonds among the group. Shuo couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction and anticipation for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that with each passing day his strength and influence were growing exponentially.